These are my picks of the top 20 designs in BrickLink Series 6, the most creative builds that I feel are most likely to be picked by LEGO, and I'll give you my prediction for the winning 5. Discuss your favourites and predictions in the comments below, but let's start with this. A rather wonderful little fishing boat. Now, this comes in at 844 pieces. It's definitely not the smallest of submissions for Series 6, but it is at the lower end. Bear in mind, submission guidelines state that sets must be at least 400 pieces, no more than 4,000, with an average across the final 5 of about 2,500. Now, there are actually a few boats between LEGO Ideas and the upcoming series from BrickLink that do already have boats in them, but there's nothing of this size or style. I think that this has a lot of character to it and does stand a good chance. For the size, it's got a wonderful amount of detail and still a decent amount of space for our minifigures, whether it is on the little side build or with the boat itself. I also really like that this could very easily be integrated with other existing sets or alongside a city setup. There is no way that this looks out of place. It's just going to complement everything, and it's been really nicely done. It absolutely deserves to be in this top 20 list. That said, it's not going to make my top 5, and I don't think that it will be chosen. Although it's different from those other upcoming boats, the fact that we do have them is probably going to play against it a little bit, and there are stronger submissions, in my opinion, even in this piece count range to come. But there have been around 300 submissions overall for Series 6, so being in my top 20, if the fan designer happens to be listening, please take it as a huge compliment, because I think this is great, and if it was chosen, I'm pretty sure it would be extremely popular. Next up is this, the Forest Encounter. Now, I have touched on this one before in the separate video I did on medieval sets, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it, but just to recap, 560 pieces, right down at the smaller end of things, and of course it makes the top 20 list. Just look at it. Whilst I'm an absolute sucker for the huge castle or other medieval sets with big piece counts and, unfortunately, big price tags attached to them, what a wonderful compliment this would be to pre-existing sets. A horse and carriage is such a brilliant idea. It's got the added fun of having a bandit from the wolf pack ready to hold up the Lion Knights. I would like to see some alternative pieces if possible to allow for other factions, but I do know that is also limited at the moment with the pieces that BrickLink are allowing to be used. So maybe if it did make it, that's something that LEGO could take into consideration. What I can say commercially is that if this was picked, I know not everybody is a medieval fan, but if this was chosen, the 30,000 copies would be sold out in well under 24 hours. This is exactly the sort of add-on that Castle fans really like, and it should come in at a really reasonable price point. So I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it definitely will have a huge amount of popularity. So from where I'm sitting, kind of ticks all the boxes. Okay, moving on, another one to compete in the smaller end of things is this, the Container Cafe, coming in with 711 pieces. Now, I think it's fair to say off the bat that this set doesn't particularly appeal to me personally. It's not the sort of thing that I'm attracted to. However, I really appreciate it for what it is. First and foremost, something quite different. You know, from a modern design element, containers are being used more and more. I think incorporating that is nice and quirky, especially having it up on suspenders here with the staircase going up. That suspension part is pretty neat. And then all the section down at the front and underneath. That's a very clever use of space. It's more places to position the minifigs, to have some fun with this. I think there's good interactivity, almost playability to a set that's really very small. And whilst being different, it integrates well into a city setup. So that's another big bonus for it. Now, the cafe itself looks fairly well appointed. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of pictures, so can't really see details on the inside. But to counter that, there's clearly plenty of access points. Getting in and out to position the minifigs shouldn't be an issue. And I also think that colour has been used really nicely here, contrasting between the container and then the green of the trees and the plants and the little awning canopy here as well. So definitely not my favourite, but very cleverly thought through. My next pick is this, the Vintage Festival Foodtruck. It's coming in at the smaller end of things, just over the 1,000 piece mark, but it's beautifully quaint and a wonderful little scene. Food trucks are also pretty popular. They look great in a city setup, and when they are at the smaller end of things, part count wise, it means that they are quite affordable, makes them all the more desirable. And the fact that this has been done in a vintage style, it really appeals to me. And you've also got this wonderful little 3-wheel add-on build too. This would just go so well with a modular setup. I really like it. Of course, we also have a decent amount of space on the base too, the benches being a super choice for the minifigures that we get here, and of course any others that you want to add into this scene. And choosing autumn, I think, is a wonderful touch. Just having the leaves on the ground along with the pumpkin adds that extra little bit of texture that otherwise would risk this being ever so slightly bland. Not so here. Between that and the plants and of course the roaring fire, you just get that feeling that autumn is in full flow. It's got a chill in the air, but the nice fire crackling away. What better time than to go and grab some yummy food after you've been at a festival? And I really like the tree up here too and having the lanterns hanging from it. It's all just really nicely done. A picturesque little scene that could easily be added in among a load of other sets, and it's just going to add so much extra story. I love the squirrel with the acorn. That's super. You know, I suspect that this will have received quite a lot of votes because it is the sort of slightly generic thing that appeals to a wide range of people whilst having the uniqueness of the vintage food truck and everything about it been thought through so nicely. I suspect this one is going to get a lot of votes and definitely deserving of being on the list. If it was one of the winners, I think it would sell very well. Okay, moving on. One I covered in the pirate theme video that I did of the BrickLink Series 6 sets, Adventure on Tapu Island. This one is 1,880 pieces. Now, there were a few that I liked from the pirate theme, but land-based, this one really did capture the inner child's imagination in me. I feel that it's really a bit of a homage to some of the original pirate sets that we had, and some of us love and remember so fondly. The fact that it can be reconfigured round, that is a really fun play feature. It means that you're not going to get bored with it. There's a decent amount of things going on the inside, lots to capture the attention, and I feel that this is something that has been designed from a playability point of view first, and the way that it looks after. Maybe I'm wrong, that's just what I get from it. That's not actually a bad thing here. You know, it's not the most polished set, not something that is going to look fantastic to have on display. I mean, if I compare it in my mind to the likes of the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set that we had, or even El Dorado Fortress, or of course the Tortuga set that's going to be coming up. You know, those are much bigger, so I'm definitely not doing a direct comparison, but all of those have a real impact when it comes to displayability. They're fairly polished, quite beautiful in a way, something that I don't think this is. However, that's not a bad thing because it's still pretty wonderful looking, but in a classic way. It is very much like those earlier pirate sets. The aesthetics are really nice, but they're done as simply as they need to be. There's no over-engineering here. It's just having a good-looking set that you can really get in and have fun with. Now, it's not going to look out of place, I don't feel, in a setup next to some of those other sets. And whilst I'm not a huge fan of using skeletons in these because they're not really minifigs and yet they take up the minifig count, they do kind of work. They add to the story. Our two main characters that we have here, they're really fun. The inner child in me just loves this set. So if you're an A-foil that's just after pure displayability factor, this isn't going to be for you. But if you want something that still looks pretty good whilst being a whole bunch of fun, I feel this is hitting the nail on the head. Next up, I've chosen this, the Star Frigate. Now, this is a set that's coming in at 2,776 pieces. It's over the average size, and that does put it up against some really serious competition. Nonetheless, I really appreciate the originality of this set. What a wonderful blend of the sort of pirate ship theme mixed in with futuristic sci-fi space travel. I think probably one of the biggest things that will go against this set is LEGO not wanting to be this generous with these colours. They're usually quite stingy with them. But it's got some wonderful shaping to it as well. I do adore these sort of solar sails. I think the concept is fab. As a standalone display piece, it's awesome. And whilst I think the size does go against it a bit because of what it's going to be pitting it up against, there's no denying it's pretty dramatic. I think you have to stop and stare when it comes to this. Now, going against it, in the interest of balance, I feel that it's probably a little bit niche. Because of its size, it would be expensive, which means that because I don't think it'll appeal to loads of people, it's probably not going to sell out, which obviously is not what LEGO or BrickLink wants. And I can't see them giving us all these pieces. They're too stingy with these colours. So, predictions-wise, I don't think that this is going to be in the 5 finalists, but I was absolutely going to have it in this top 20 because it really appeals to me, and even if it's not for you, I think you can probably appreciate the cleverness of the concept, some of the wonderful shaping that has been included here, and just all round a really nicely designed project. Okay, I wanted to mix things up a little bit, so we're going to bounce back to the slightly lower end of things. 577 pieces. I covered this in the medieval theme video as well, so we won't spend too long on our Royal Carriage, but it's fairly beautifully appointed. This is the sort of set size where actually we should be able to get these pieces, and it really is a thing of beauty. Whilst I'll admit that I probably prefer this one more personally, it is a close call, and I think this one would actually prove more popular just simply because you can adapt it to fit more scenarios. You know, simply by switching out the minifigs, this could become more of a modern day Royal Carriage. Not something that you would have to put in a medieval setup. If you do city builds, actually you could incorporate this too. And for something that at its core is very simple and doesn't have that much space, it's all been optimized wonderfully. Love the fact we can fit the two minifigs inside. It's all beautifully appointed in and out. And quite frankly, with the pieces used, the size and therefore the price point that should be attached to it, the compatibility with different scenarios and setups, I don't see how this couldn't sell out really quickly. So again, from a commercial point of view, makes absolute sense. Now we move on to something really different, the Dwarven Blacksmith bust, something that is completely unique compared to any other submission in Series 6. I'm pretty blown away by this. Now, I'll say straight away, this probably won't appeal to a lot of people. I think it's quite specific, and because it's so different, it probably wouldn't fit in with what a lot of people have on display. So even those who think it looks amazing, probably the amount that would actually want to crowdfund this would be really quite slim. I therefore fear that were it chosen, it probably wouldn't sell that well, and that's one of the biggest things that's going to go against it. All of that said though, just look at it. It is astounding. Human shapes, even slightly fantasized like this for our dwarf, are really difficult, and I'm astounded by the amount of character that's been caught in here. Just the way that the lines are done between the eyes, above the big nose, gives that sort of intense stare look, and the wonderful bushy eyebrows. The pieces used in this to build up this level of texture and depth is really amazing. I mean, overall, this is 2,309 pieces. I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, I like the helmets collection, but if we could start to get proper busts of beloved characters, whether it be from Star Wars or like this, of course, I'm thinking Lord of the Rings, I'd love that. They'll never do it, but I would absolutely love it. And I just have to take my hat off to our fan designer on this one. I think that the colours used are brilliant, the shaping's wonderful, the attention to detail is outstanding. I think that it is too different to be chosen, and I'm kind of sad to say it because I would absolutely try to crowdfund and buy this. I find it really impressive. It's exactly the sort of thing that I like, and you know what, even if it's not for you, post down in the comments what you think of it, because I struggle to see how anybody couldn't at least admit that this is wonderfully impressive in the way that it's done. Right then, the pump house, one that I covered in the buildings video that we did for Series 6 earlier in the week, 4,000 pieces, so it's maxing it out. I think it's fair to say that there are some builds which really sort of split opinions. You know, you get some which are quite generic. It doesn't really matter what kind of Lego fan you are. You sort of like them enough to get them, but you're never really going to love them. And then there's things like this, which I can imagine for some people will bear very little attraction at all. It's certainly not pretty in the normal sense of the word. However, for the rest of us, this is something that we not only want, we actually need to build out the Lego world. I think that it's been fantastically designed. You've got something really quite complex that has been done in such a way that it almost has a simplicity to it, and that's a very difficult thing to do. Wonderful amount of space to position our minifigures in. It looks great from all angles, but then when you actually open up and get inside it, you've got the wonderful mechanism that can be motorized too. I think it's a real treat. I love the water wheel, the way that that's been done, but even all the little touches, just from the foliage creeping up the side to the odd different colour tile that's been thrown in. You know, the owl sitting on top. This absolutely is within the top 20 builds that have been submitted for Series 6, and I think it's higher than that. I know motors aren't for everyone. They are for me. The fact that that has been done so it can be put in there, massive tick in the box. Here is a build that not only fulfills a gap in the market, it's one that fills a gap in the overall LEGO world that we really do need. And I'm sure many will enjoy. So yes, it's at the top end. Yes, it's going to be expensive. That would put it out of the reach of quite a few, but there's going to be even more who would absolutely want to crowdfund this. It really is a standout design. Next up, I've chosen the Blue Train. Now, there were quite a few train submissions in Series 6. This was one of the biggest. In fact, I think it is the biggest, 3,981 pieces. And it goes against what I normally choose in a train. For a start, I'm a big fan of the steam locos, so they normally always get my main bit of attention. And generally, I prefer it to all be focused on the train itself without piece count being wasted on the terrain, which of course is going to massively up the price. But here's the thing, this is quite special. It's very different. As much as we train fans do want track, there's no denying we like a tunnel. This adds a lot of character, and the way that it's been done is pretty beautiful. It's a wonderful combination of engineering and nature. It's a lovely little blend. So what would usually count against it for me, I think, is actually quite a big plus. And then our train itself, it's very nicely designed. You know, this isn't just for show. Trains can actually fit through it, and you can put your standard track through as well. I think it's really lovely, and again, different from what we've had before. Adds into the world. You know, we've had a couple of train-related sets picked for BrickLink. The first being a logging railway that didn't do too well. We've got the Western Steam Train coming up. I know I want it, so I don't know how well it'll sell overall, but, you know, a more modern take. I think the demand is definitely there. Now, again, comment down below, because maybe you have a very differing opinion from me. The fact that this is going to be using up a large amount of pieces may well put a lot of people off. I know there is a big thinking towards it's just going to be upping the price, but whilst I am normally more in that camp, I have to say, here, for me, the aesthetics definitely outweigh that. It's a really beautiful build. So do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Now, my next choice may surprise some. After all, Wild West style builds, although having been picked in the past, haven't sold particularly well so far. Something I find quite surprising. I'm a big fan of the Wild West theme and I want to see more of it. But here we just have almost the perfect blend of everything in this build. Not only does it look super cool, it's got the fun interactivity, there's loads of space, and within every layer there's just a different story going on. I love the core concept that's going on here. It's such a clever way of being able to introduce all different characters in different scenarios in one building. There's so few sets that actually manage to do that. They just stand out a mile to me when I do see them, and I think this is a fantastic example of it. Just over the 3,500 piece count, that is putting it up there. We'll have some stiff competition, but I think it stands a very good chance. All the colours used are very in keeping with the sort of time period. I think especially with movies, you know, this could easily be like a film set. And yet, as far as the actual Lego palette goes and the individual pieces that have been chosen, it's all very cleverly done. Complements itself really nicely. And let's not forget, you've also got a fun, good range of minifigures in here too. That's another added bonus. Now, I will go so far as to say that I think this building is so cleverly done and so nicely designed that it will appeal even to people who are not typically going to be into your Wild West theme or this style of build. There's no denying it would be more at the expensive end of things, but come on, totally looks worth it. Fantastic build, really great job. So then, just before we get to another new one that I haven't covered before, I do of course have to mention this Red Rose Castle. I know that it was featured in the buildings video that I did earlier in the week, but here's the thing, 3,949 pieces, all put to expert use. This is a really standout build. Now, in that previous video that you may or may not have seen, I mentioned that this is in its sort of gothic styling, quite similar to the Transylvania Castle by Sleepless Night. Completely different colour palettes, different story. It's just that size-wise and sort of concept gothic-wise, it is very similar, just to be following on, you know, directly one series later, and that might go against it. Now, some people have also pointed out that it would be a wonderful pairing, and I don't disagree. Exactly why I'm featuring it in this top 20, because it is an absolutely standout building. There's no question I'd love to have this. Just look at all the detailing that has gone into it. You know, we've got loads of small pieces, but the overall structure itself is extremely impressive, and there's wonderful shaping going on. Huge amount of interactivity with this as well. You know, an absolute piece that is for both display and play. I feel it's definitely one of the standout builds of this series, and for that reason does stand an extremely good chance of being chosen. All that said and done, I just feel that LEGO and BrickLink won't do it. I just think it's coming too hot off the heels of the Transylvania Castle set. That's just my gut feeling. So it's not that I feel that this isn't deserving, because it absolutely is, and I kind of really want it. At the same time, I don't think that it will make the cut this time round. Kind of want to be proved wrong on that though, because it is pretty awesome. Next up is Dragon Attack, and oh boy, the kid in me wanted this from when I was younger. I mean, I still want it now, but then would have been awesome. What an incredible dragon. 2,995 pieces. This is brilliant. First of all, look, the little side build, the tower, I'm not really bothered. There's nothing special about it. However, it is nice to actually give some scale to the dragon, and it's good to get you know, a little add-on piece as well as the dragon itself. But let's not kid ourselves, it is this which this submission is all about, and it's awesome. The wings, I mean, they are nice. They're not the best wings that I've seen, but they're still pretty great. And as for the rest of it, just look at the detail that's been put into this, and, you know, the rotation capacity that's been thought out here. This is going to allow for fantastic articulation and positioning, and it all looks proportional as well, apart from the wings. Like I say, I feel they should actually be a little bit bigger to make sense with the rest of our dragon here, but that is my only gripe, and they are still nice. Everything else, though, unlike so many of the dragons that LEGO decides to give us, it is all wonderfully in proportion. Yeah, side build, as I've said, it's actually quite nice in its own right, to be fair. It is very much an aside with the submission, but I do feel that it helps complement and give scale to things, so that is quite nice. But yeah, this is one of the best submissions for dragons that I think we've seen in a very long time. I love all of the texture, the wonderful detail, and the colours, and the head. The head is brilliant, absolutely wonderfully shaped, and you know, whilst being a very modern set in the way that we do have all these pieces and a wonderful size to it, it has that classic feel again. That's why I said right at the beginning, I feel like I wanted this as a kid, because it is very much classic fantasy castle dragons. What a thing to have. You know, it's just super fun. What a thing to play with and have on display. You know, LEGO do some pretty good sets for kids these days, although I do take umbrage a lot at the cost of them. But surely I'm not alone in thinking that quite a lot of it now is pretty bland. You know, you're not getting a huge amount of excitement out of it. I'm actually really impressed with some of the dream sets that they've been bringing out. They're great for getting kids into LEGO and adults alike. There's that sort of dual appeal. But can anybody truly tell me that if you gave a kid this, it wouldn't just absolutely get them into LEGO? It's so fun and cool. And I don't think it's just for boys either. There's plenty of girls that would love this too. It's pretty sort of, it doesn't matter what gender you are. It's just a really fun, cool, awesome LEGO set that looks great and is amazing to play with. So super cool. Big thumbs up from me. Moving on now, though, we come to the medieval toll bridge. Yes, I've covered this in the medieval video as well, and there was little doubt in my mind it was going to make the top 20. 2,699 pieces. It is an ode to the Wolfpack, and what a wonderful return it would herald. You've got some nice little side builds with the horse and cart and the raft, and of course a wonderful array of different minifigs, including those all-important Wolfpack members. They do need a base. It's been too long. We want to see them return, and here we have a splendid fortification. I'm really enjoying the idea of having a bridge. It's something you would obviously get a lot in medieval times, having a sort of toll bridge that you'd have to cross. I think if you have a castle set up, especially if it's like Lion Knights on one side, Black Falcons on the other, having this in between, it just adds to that world so much. You know, it's not a traditional castle, and yet it has all the play factor that you could possibly want, all the imposing things that you would expect from a display piece too. Colours that have been used from the water and the vegetation down the bottom up to the stonework of the bridge, and then obviously the blacks and reds for the Wolfpack's outposts on top as well. It's just super. An absolutely standout submission, and I also think he's hitting the nail on the head in being a very complementary piece to some of the other BrickLink sets that we've already had. Bearing in mind, LEGO gave us, of course, the Lion Knights castle, but then from Series 1 we had the Mountain Fortress. We're going to get the Siege encampment as well. We've just had the Forestman's Outpost, and I feel that the way that those are laid out and set up are very similar in the way that this has been designed too. So it's going to look good alongside those. Definitely not out of place. It's going to complement it all. Just rounds everything out for a wonderful display, and you have all the fun options for good game experience with this too. So I think it's pretty brilliant. I kind of want to see it be chosen because I'd really like to add this to the collection. Now, though, we need to return to our pirate theme. So here we have the Pirates of the Seven Seas, and I'm just going to put alongside it the Privateer Frigate Fortuna. Two very different ships from the pirate world. This one coming in with 2,915 pieces, and this one maxing it out at 4,000. They are very different. You don't want to pit them against each other. Nonetheless, they are. Like it or not, they're in the same series. They're from the same theme. There's more chance of the next Taylor Swift song not being about a breakup than there is having both of these chosen. I think they're both fantastic and well-deserving to be on the list for quite different reasons. Our Pirates of the Seven Seas set that we have here is just a wonderful fantasy pirate ship. It comes with some lovely pieces, again in colours that we don't get that many of. Might go against it, but it's just super fun. It's definitely not unrealistic, but at the same time, it is fantasy. It's not an exact, duplicate of any pirate ship that we've had, not to my knowledge anyway. Nonetheless, very close in shaping. It's got all of the wonderful interior details that you would expect, as well as just having that amazing exterior. There's so much fun to be had here. You could put this on display. It's going to immediately draw attention from everybody who walks into a room, whether you have existing ships from the original pirate theme or whether it's Pirates of the Caribbean ships that you've got. This is going to look great alongside them. It's going to complement them. It's absolutely super. And all the attention that has gone into what we have on the inside as well. It's so easy to overlook that, I think, when you're doing a ship. You've got the outside and you sort of think, right, that's it, I'm done. Not the case here. You absolutely do not want to just have this relegated to a display show. If you want to get it down, be playing with it, have your minifigures in there. It is absolutely outstanding, and in that respect, so many of us would love to see it. Now, by contrast, this really isn't a fantasy ship. It is, I mentioned in the video that I did when covering these sets, it's very much like an actual model ship. If you aren't even into Lego and you're a model ship collector, well, this could well be your first foray into Lego because it's as good as those. The detailing is absolutely spectacular. The sizing is, incredible. This has been proposed before, but it's been reworked. So yes, although it is still the maximum, all the technique on the inside has been reworked. It's reduced the piece count down so that we've now got more detailing on the exterior, reworking the bow to make that more secure. There's just complete reworking of the ship. And, I feel torn because on the one hand, both of these you would be proud to have on display and both of them you would be happy to play with. But certainly to my mind, I feel that this is much more of a play set. I would love to just get involved with the world that it's creating. It's got so much character. You could bring this in towards the El Dorado Fortress if you have that. There's a whole load of fun to be had with it. This, less so. Still plenty of play options, but I feel like I wouldn't do that as much. It's more for display, and I think that you would have this very much proudly positioned as a centerpiece. So more display, less play, more play, less display. That's the way that I feel about these. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It really tears me between them. It's not the best time to be proposing ships. We already have the Endurance coming later this year. You've got multiple boats coming from LEGO Ideas and the BrickLink Designer Program. You've got the Goonies ship that's also coming out as well, albeit half a cave, half a ship. Still an incredible ship. There's rumours of another big ship that's coming at the end of next year too. So all that's sort of going against them, and yet at the same time, they're both fantastic. Therefore, as this is my video, I shall have the enviable position of not choosing which I prefer more. I'll leave that down to you to battle out in the comments below. Switching scene completely now though, we head over to Woodland Hollow. This is a set that comes in with 3,827 pieces. It is another really big build, but it's very different again and really beautiful. I love the shaping that goes on here. If you enjoy the sort of fantasy builds, here's something that could really fit in quite a few different places. I am sort of thinking Lord of the Rings Hobbit sets again, it's not going to be out of place, but also simultaneously, you stick this next to the likes of Snow White's cottage and then other medieval builds, it's not going to look out of place either. It's very pretty. A downside to it is you do get a huge amount of sort of accessories with it. Now, from a storytelling point of view, that's really good. Unfortunately, that is contributing quite heftily to the piece count, and that is moving it into the big boy leagues. Unfortunately, that does up the cost quite a bit potentially if you were crowdfunding this. But I think the choice of colours is wonderful. This is such a beautiful tree in the middle, lovely centrepiece. The shaping of our houses here, they are just wonderful, and I think the colours chosen absolutely set them off. It's a beautiful world. It is open around the back. I know that that will put some people off. In this particular instance, I actually don't mind it. I think it's quite a nice way to do it. Allows nice ease of access for minifigs, but also just really lets you take a good look at what's going on the inside. It's also modularized so that you can take it apart and really get ease of access very simply. Some of the shaping that we have here, it's just exquisite, and the colors chosen, really is beautiful. I think submissions that manage to get something that is quite unique but nonetheless will fit in with other sets that we've had in the past, it's a very difficult tightrope to walk. But if you get it right, you can come up with something really tremendous. And I think this is getting it just right. It is the perfect blend. The only reason that I'm going to say that this won't make the top 5 is that it is too big. I think there's a couple of other sets in this size range that are going to beat it out, and sadly that piece count is being pushed up quite significantly by quite a lot of small pieces. So it's exquisite, definitely top 20, but I don't think it's going to make the top 5. Speaking of which, that brings us to the final 5 of the video. These aren't necessarily the top 5. I will give you those separately at the end of what I think will be chosen. But here we are, Wolf of the Swamp. I did cover this in the Castle, the medieval video that I did, but there was never a doubt in my mind that this was going to be in the top 20 list. It is spectacular. First of all, it's very difficult to do shaping of, be it a human or an animal, and it usually puts people off. But the way that this has been done for this wolf head is simply staggering. I do believe it to be artistry. It's not often that you do get that in a Lego set, but that is what this is. It is fantastically different. Here we have somewhere that can be home to our wolf pack, which is something that we've all been wanting for a very long time. It could also very much go with The Witcher, for fans of that. It doesn't refer to it directly. It can't. That's a third-party IP. You're not allowed, but you can't tell me that this doesn't fit in with the School of the Wolf. You definitely expect to find some Witcher gear here. But there's so much going on, and the shaping that has been captured here is extremely difficult. This is a very, very hard model to design. It is very clever the way it's been put together, and I think, therefore, the building experience of this as well would be truly quite special. I'm sure that you would learn a lot, but it's also a magnificent thing to have on display. Not like anything else that we've seen. But then you also have all these wonderful little interactivity features too. So there is playability involved in this as well. Now, one of the cleverest things that I find about this is that it's only 2,178 pieces. And when you actually look at the amount of detail that has been captured here, the size, just compare it to the minifigs and the shaping that's gone into it, that is extraordinarily impressive. There's not a single piece that has gone to waste here. It is really remarkable. That brings me on to something else that's remarkable for different reasons. This is the City Arcade, and it's a beautiful use of colour. Whether you just like collecting the odd standalone piece or you're lucky enough to have a full-on city setup, here is an absolute highlight for it. There is a lot of fun and amusement going on. The colours all make wonderful sense. We've got the natural greys of the pavement, the complementing colours of the blues and the browns that we have down here, coming up into the brown brickwork, and then this explosion of red around the edges with the wonderful yellow arcade lettering. Then we've got more blue in the background, and of course I call this sort of pizza planet from Toy Story when I featured this before. It's that sort of spaceship planet on top. It's spectacular, but then you get inside and there are all the fun games that you would expect to find in an arcade. What a world for our minifigs. It's amazingly done. 2,243 pieces. Well, again, there's not a piece out of place here. Every single thing has a purpose. It's just adding to it. I feel that sometimes designers don't know when to stop and they just, go that little bit too far. It's not the case here. Everything you look at, there's something that you find, it makes you smile. Colours chosen, all beautifully complement each other. They're contrasting, but in a complementary way. I think it's an absolutely outstanding building. I really do. And I think it would sell like hotcakes commercially. I can't see how it doesn't make sense. loads of people would want this. It's fantastic. And that causes me difficulties because then we have this, another building, the Art Factory, submitted before but tweaked and changed round. It's something else that is simply incredible. A very different style of pavement around the edge, allowing for even more fun details probably than the last. It's a beautifully designed building. The colours, again, are just exquisite. We actually have an elevator on the side. Big bonus from me, and I'm not going to repeat the stuff that I said when I featured this earlier in the week in the buildings video, so if you want, go back and watch that. But I think I'll just sum it up by saying here we have a building that allows us to have so many different stories going on within it, and that is rare, because usually when you do get a building, there's a maximum of 1 or 2 sort of scenes that you can have going on. But here, not just on every floor, but in different parts of the same floor, you can have different stuff going on. The fact that it can just open and close up so easily, wherever that picture's gone here. It is an absolutely masterful design, one of the best mocks that I've ever seen. I think it is absolutely superb. I'm pretty shocked it wasn't chosen before, actually, and I really feel that I need this as a set. It's simply superb. But then we have this, the Elven Haven. Now, piece count-wise, this comes in just shy of the maximum, 3,973. But boy, does it look brickin' impressive. The first thought is what exquisite shaping and colours that have been chosen. It really is beautiful. In fact, the only thing probably that I dislike about this, not the fountain itself, but the water spilling over the edge. I just don't particularly like this choice of tiles. Would have been nicer to use a few more pieces if possible. Have a couple of trans tiles over the top there. Yes, that would make it bigger and thicker, and therefore that actually may ruin it. Just in my mind's eye, I think that could add a bit more texture to it, which would be nicer. But do you know what? I am nitpicking because it's pretty much the only thing that I can find about this that I don't like. Everything else is so wonderfully detailed, beautiful bit of architecture and colouring that's going on here. It's another build that just has its whole own world attached to it. You look at it and it just speaks of a story, wonderful creativity. The different ways that you can have this displayed as well for interactivity is super. And again, that's a whole different difficulty level as well, because often when you get something that's this big and complex and detailed, it's hard enough to do that, but then having the ability to switch it around as well, it is a cornucopia of fun. Look at all of the detailing on the inside, fantastic spacing for minifigures as well, really outstanding builds, very different again from other things that we've had in the past. I really do like it. Now, I think maybe the thing that would go against it is there's not too many things that you could put this along with, existing Lego set wise, that it's going to complement. Automatically Rivendell is obviously coming to my mind, but then this isn't Lord of the Rings, so actually if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, that would then be rather clashy and not make sense. So it's a little bit difficult in that regard. Let me know in the comments what you think this would potentially pair up well with, but do you know what? Even just as a standalone display piece, I don't care. This is fantastic. Great space for playability as well. It really is an exquisite set. But that brings us to the end of my top 20 picks, meaning that I have to give you my predictions for the final 5. Now, when we were looking at Series 5, I correctly called these 4. Admittedly, I didn't get the antique shot, but equally, I just feel that these 4 were so standout from everything else. It was almost a little bit obvious. That isn't the case here for Series 6. I think that there's a lot closer competition that's been happening. Still some absolutely standout sets, but at the same time, not quite so obvious, I don't feel. And so it has been hard. There have been some incredible ones on here which I've looked at and really enjoyed, and yet I've not featured them because for one reason or another, I just don't think that they will be picked. And that's why I really am interested in your thoughts. Comment below, not only on the ones that I've been covering in this video, but also others that I potentially haven't that you think do stand a chance. But here we go, my top 5, the ones I'm predicting to be winners. We will start with this, the arcade. Although there have been some absolutely standout buildings for Series 6 submitted, and I mean it, truly incredible designs, this one really does stand head and shoulders above them. It would fit so well into so many setups. It's joyful, it's vibrant, it's achieved something really amazing looking for this particular piece count. I really expect it to be hugely popular with so many different types of Lego fans, and because of that it will sell well. So I'm going to lock that in. It is of course just a guess, but I think that this is going to be one of the 5 winners. My second choice is a little bit more difficult. I am going to go for the Vintage Festival Foodtruck, but to give you a little look at the mad inner workings of my mind, which is a very scary place to go, I am extremely torn. Part of me really thinks that the Forest Encounter or the Royal Carriage would be absolutely perfect. They're wonderfully designed, they are right down at the lower end of the piece count, and just because of what they are, they would definitely sell out. There really is a big part of me that is saying that one of them will be chosen, although which one I wouldn't like to guess. But here's the thing. This medieval toll bridge ticks absolutely all of the boxes, and I really want it to be made into a set. But I don't think it's going to be. For some reason, just a gut feeling that I can't really quantify, I can't see it being picked as a winner. I know that's not satisfactory. Moan at me down in the comments below. I cannot really tell you what it is. More than just a feeling about the types of sets that have been picked, over the past few series. This absolutely deserves to be one of them. And I don't feel that it's going to be. Now, in many ways, that makes me think that it's all the more likely that one of these will be chosen because, let's be honest, if you were going to be doing this, you wouldn't be doing this as well. Not just because there's already a horse and carriage in there, it's simply that the whole castle medieval theme is far too similar. I think they'd shy away from doing that. But I don't think we are going to be getting an all-out castle this time round. So, as brilliantly as I think these would work, I'm going to say they're not going to make it. So, more at the smaller end of things, although still definitely not tiny, just over the 1,000 piece count mark will be the Vintage Festival Foodtruck. It's a little bit generic, it's going to appeal to a lot of people. The whole Foodtruck theme is something that has proved itself time and again as being appealing. It would definitely sell, but credit where it's due, everything about it has just been wonderfully done. I think it's one of those chef's kiss sets. It's perfectly hit the nail on the head. So I'm going to lock that in as the second of the 5 winners that we're going to be getting. Now, bearing in mind that I've just said I don't think that our medieval toll bridge will make it this time round, that's because I think instead we're going to be getting this Wolf of the Swamp. I would love it if we could get both. The fact is, though, it's simply not going to happen. And I feel that this is different enough that it's going to make BrickLink Lego feel like they are perhaps appealing to more people. Maybe I'm very wrong there, but this is a medieval set that isn't a castle, and whether you like it or not, there are fans that are fed up with there being so many castles. I have to say, personally, I'm not in that camp, but I'm sure Lego must be aware of it. So this is a nice way of having something different. It does have the sort of Witcher-esque vibes to it as well. It is beautifully designed, pretty unique from anything else that's been submitted to, and I think that will get it over the line. So I'm going to call that one as well. Now for the fourth one, I am very torn again. In my mind, I'm thinking either the Goldmine Expedition, part of me would love to say the Art Factory, and then there's the kid in me that thinks Adventure on Tapu Island is the perfect mix of simple, almost naive design, and I mean that in the best possible way because nothing has been over-engineered with this. Everything has a purpose, it's exactly what it needs to be, super fun, really quite wonderful. But then that's 1,880 pieces. The Art Factory, that's 2.5. It so deserves to be a set, but somehow, just as it missed out before, I think it will miss out again. The Goldmine, I mean, this is a big set. It's 3,500 pieces, but there is something really quite special about it. And to be frank, BrickLink has been skewing more towards the higher end of piece counts with the sets that they've been choosing over the past couple of series. So whereas I would have been a bit tentative because of that before, actually, I think it's probably pretty reasonable to expect that they would do this, along with another big set too. So this is going to be my number 4. I can definitely see this being put along the winning lineup, which means that we only have one slot left. And to my mind, it can only be one thing. And that is this, the Elven Haven. Yes, it is a very big set again, as we looked at a minute ago, just under the 4,000 piece mark, but it is pretty epic. It's wonderfully unique, an absolutely standout design. Everything about it really is just fantastical in the best possible way. And here's the thing, it's clearly not a castle, but it's going to appeal to a lot of the castle fans, anybody who is a fan of fantasy, and also probably appeal to others who wouldn't normally call that their sort of wheelhouse in terms of the things that they like. It's just so beautifully detailed throughout. You know, for Series 3, they picked the Lost City as a winner, and it kind of bamboozled me at the time, because although this is a really pretty set from a few angles, very different parts about it that I definitely like, It's also pretty bland, you know, very empty, stark looking, not much space. There's not really any fun here. I don't have much of a story speak to me, and it only comes with 2 minifigs, so I don't really know why they picked it. To my mind, I'm thinking perhaps they wanted something that wasn't a castle, but they thought would therefore appeal to a wider range of people. Almost a bit of a safe bet, and yet it just missed out on so many fundamental things. I'm not surprised it didn't sell well. This, though, is kind of what that should have been. It's something very different, will have a lot wider appeal. It has loads of characters, so much detail, decent minifigs too. Just the sort of build that you look at, step back and think, wow, what an epic LEGO design that is. So for me, that takes 5th spot. That means my 5 winners will be the City Arcade, the Vintage Festival Food Truck, the Goldmine Expedition, Wolf of the Swamp, and the Elven Haven. Only time will tell, but comment down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think I've gone bonkers and I'm completely wrong? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and check out one of these 2 videos next. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.